As we always say, share the video, share the video. And number three, what's number three?
So number three, y'all. So if you find yourself in your relationship and you're questioning whether or not you're the victim of physical abuse,
Questioning, Lord.
yeah, mental abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse. If you find yourself in your relationship and you're questioning if that's the case, then your relationship may be on the ropes. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, again, to question, it means that you're in denial to some degree of actually occurring in the relationship. And so you want to make sure that you're paying attention, your eyes are wide open, and you're coming to reckon with the reality that what's going on is not appropriate. It's not acceptable.
Yeah.
And this is not the type of relationship that you deserve. It's not the type of relationship that you desire. And so, again, if your relationship is in that space where there's constant tension and you're experiencing emotional, physical, mental, financial abuse, then there's a question mark as to whether or not your relationship is on the ropes. And the reason why I'm saying that is because you can continue in that space, which you probably have for an extended period of time up until this point, and you've managed to deal with, you managed to be, you managed to exist, and you've managed to be, quote unquote, okay in your eyes. But again, you're normalizing dysfunctional behavior. And so when you come to the awareness that it's not okay, then that's when the problems start to arise. Because you're trying to go down a different path, recognizing that the way I'm being treated is not acceptable.
And I think, too, we have to look at, some of what we've become accustomed to based on relationships that we saw when we were younger, or just what's the norm around us, whatever we think the norm is, because emotional and verbal abuse sometimes is harder for people to be able to clearly see. But when you have patterns of blaming, patterns of sarcasm and critical comments consistently over and over again, manipulative, disrespectful, undermining kinds of comments. This is a real indicator that there's not really, if you really look at it, there's not really space being made for you. And so what people will do is they dip out. Now, they may not dip out physically, but they dip out emotionally and mentally because they have to protect themselves. So whether you're receiving that or you are giving that, also raging, I'll just add that on, raging, R-A-G-I-N-G, raging, is really something where we as individuals really are not very well self-regulated. We don't have the ability to check our emotions, to see where we are. And so we need to discharge it and get it out. And what we tell parents a lot of times with young people is, kids usually do it in a safe place. Well, adults do that as well. They get rid of these negative, hard to deal with, stressful kinds of emotions in the place where they feel it's the safest. And a lot of times it's your partner. So now they're raging on you. But that happens persistently, where somebody has to be the object of your yelling, your name calling, your blaming, your manipulative, undermining, sarcastic, critical behavior and comments. Your relationship is on the ropes. If you ain't recognized, it's on the ropes. So we have to be mindful of what the emotional and the verbal abuse can look like. It is abuse when you have to repeatedly deal with that. And so we just need to call it what it is. Call it what it is. The other piece I want to just, if I can just add on to this, this is really probably a thing unto itself. But anytime, and I just have to throw this out there, and this is a man-woman thing. It's not just because, let me go ahead and back it up. I was getting ready to talk to the women, but I'm going to talk to the men and the women, because we've talked to and counseled enough couples who have been in relationships, where men and women are withholding affection.
Are you moving on to another point, or is it an extension?
I said I was extending it, but I don't know. This is like really another point, but whatever. Withholding communication, withholding affection, withholding sex. If you are doing that, or you're the recipient of that, your relationship is on the ropes.
So that's number 4.
Well, that's number 4. Your relationship is on the ropes. You've said this time and time again. I'm going to say it again. Sex, healthy, good, passionate, intimate, loving, freaky sex is a good part of a good relationship. And when that is lacking, and it is a pattern, and particularly when it's being withheld because, I'm just not feeling it because I'm hurt or I'm wounded and I don't feel, You may feel legitimate or justified. We don't spend the time we need to spend. I need him to lead in the way that I need him to lead, and he's not showing up the way I want him to. Why should I make myself available? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm tired. I'm doing everything on my own. There's a lot of situations that we've seen where men are dealing with, some kind of erectile dysfunction, right? Some kind of issue, some kind of medical issue. It's the same for women. And because you're struggling with that, you're dealing with that, it becomes really difficult to figure out how to get beyond that as a woman or man, so that you can then show up. Because guess what? Did y'all know that sex is not just, did you know sex is not just penetration?
I didn't know that.
You didn't know? You got a whole body to work with. You got a whole body to work with, right? And so when we have challenges around that and we withhold because we are afraid or we are uncomfortable or whatever the case may be, but particularly also when, we're mad, that's a problem. We got to push through that. When you do that, no matter how legitimate you may feel, I'm struggling, I'm dealing with, let me help you to understand. Your relationship is on the ropes. There are couples that have not had sex or had intimate communication or affection for years, months. There's some of y'all watching right now.
Yeah.
And you need to understand that this has to be prioritized. You've learned to function in the relationship and partner well in so many ways, with the kids, with the bills, with the household, man. Having gatherings, you have get-togethers, people come over, you have a good time.
Put the nice little pictures on Facebook,
you know what I'm saying? Everything's
Instagram,
good.
And everybody's smiling.
And y'all ain't doing the do. Y'all aren't communicating, and there's no touching. And that's, as a therapist, I don't do this when I'm out and about, but it's very easy for me, particularly. And no, I'm not examining people. So, if you come into the retreat in October, if you're coming to work with us in some way in a group setting, I'm not necessarily eyeing folks like this. But it's very eyeing me
eyeing me all the time.
I'm always eyeing you. Always. It's easy for me to get a temperature on where people's intimacy levels are based on the frequency of touch between couples. So when we are doing intensives and doing retreats and that kind of thing, I am paying attention. I'm not judging, because there's no space for judging, in a healing and collaborative, cooperative environment. But I'm paying attention. And when there's not a lot of touch, barely, vaguely, that lets me know something, right? When there's not a lot of talk, that lets me know something else, right? Not a lot of eye contact, but I can just pay attention to the dynamic in terms of just this, right? You need something? You want me to get you something to drink? Right? Like, or if a person just gets up and rolls out and gets themselves something and comes back. So pay attention to this dynamic in a relationship. I don't think we had to tell you that for you to know that maybe you ain't know your relationship was on the ropes, because maybe your mama and daddy slept in separate rooms and was together for 35, 45 years. God bless their souls. And that's just how they did, but that's not good. That's not healthy. And your relationship.
But they was on the ropes for 35 or 40 years, So again, we don't want to normalize that type of behavior and make it seem like it's okay. And I think that it's a good point that you lift up when it comes to withholding sex, intimacy, connection. And I'm glad you parked here for a second, because especially we as men, for those brothers who may be experiencing sexual challenges, with their situation, it can be challenging based off of what, has been shared and what's been studied, for you to be able to enter into a space emotionally and be vulnerable, to be able to extend yourself to connect in, because you don't know what the end result is going to be. You don't know whether or not you're going to be able to perform. So why would I go to the court if I don't know if I can play? What's the point? What's the point of going to go to the game, to go to the court, to put on my socks, to put on my sneaks, to put on my jersey, whatever it is that I put on? Well, there's a possibility I might not be able to get in the game. So I just avoid the blacktop altogether. I avoid it. And I avoid it. Let's say, for instance,
you always do a sports analogy.
Hey, what's up, Bruce? Let's say hypothetically, you have the capacity to perform. But let's say the way you perform is not up to par. If it's not up to par, so what's the point of me going to the court to get embarrassed? I'm gonna go to the blacktop to get embarrassed. Like why? Why would I do that? Why would I put myself in a position to get embarrassed? That I'm gonna be embarrassed in front of the person that I love, the woman that I'm supposed to perform for, the person that, as a man, I've identified myself. And sometimes we as men, we base our masculinity off of what it is that we do sexually. And so if I can't show up, why am I going to show up? If I can't show out, why am I going to show up? And so a lot of brothers feel this way. And as a result, you withhold the affection, which negatively impacts the relationship and leads to relationship dysfunction, where all you have is a functional relationship. And so what we're doing is we're encouraging you to push beyond that.
Yeah.
Go to the court even if you can't play.
You just made a strong case for not going to the court.
No, I'm just saying, but still, go to the court and be around it.
Yeah.
Go to the court and be around it. Play around with the ball. You know, I mean, be exposed. You never know. You might be able to teach somebody something. And so you might be able to get opened up in the process of just being present. If you just get to the spot, you never know what can happen. So again, we're so afraid that we're afraid to get to the spot. For those of y'all that play basketball, to structure, to organize, to be in sync, to experience an alley-oop, which is when you throw a pass to somebody, they catch it and they dunk it, there has to be some synchronicity at place. It has to be some synchronicity at play. And so again, the person has to get to the spot to catch the ball. You got to throw the ball in order for the person to get to the spot. And so if you're not finding yourself in a position where you're getting to the spot in your bedroom, where you're getting to the spot outside of the bedroom, and you're just connecting in intimately with your partner, you never know what can come from that. So you could be denying any possibility that could come from it because you're refusing to get to the spot because you're afraid to be vulnerable. Man up. Man up.
Tiffany, I like what you said. Tiffany said, but if you're a good teammate, you will help with an assist.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, it's a two-way street.
Exactly.
And I love
that.
Yeah.
And so what that means, so it's not all on you, brothers. And the reason why I'm speaking so passionately about this is because I know, based off of the work that we do, that a lot of brothers hide behind this and are afraid. And so, you know, I'm sensitive to that energy, to that space, and I don't want to minimize the seriousness, the psycho-emotional pain and trauma that might come from that. But what I do want to encourage you to do is that you still have to push through, fellas. You still got to push past that. And I like what Tiffany said is that, ladies, you got a responsibility, if you're recognizing some reservation in your man, to assist your man.
And assisting is not, you know, I'm sitting here and I'm not getting none and I don't understand, like, is it something wrong with me? I know you have issues, but, you know, I mean, you're just not trying. That's not helpful. Just so you know, and all of that may be true, but that's not helpful. When someone needs assistance, whether it's an assist like in basketball, or whether someone just
how
needs
you gonna
some
go like an assist and you go like that?
I knew it was coming. I was like, oh, I mean, you didn't say nothing. You always, anytime
you say assist, and you went like that. I mean, come on. What's an assist?
You throw it to somebody so that they can make the shot.
Oh, okay.
Right. I told you, look, stop playing. You always think I don't know nothing about no daggone sports. I was a statistician in high school. How many times I got to say that? So anyway, so at the end of the day, you have to make sure that you are paying attention to the part that you have. And it's oftentimes difficult for us because if we're not getting none, then we mad, right? And we think like, you need to come and give me some and you need to push through and think about me. But if everybody focuses on what they can do, if your partner focuses on what they can do to show up and you focus on how you can make showing up easier, right, and more attractive and safe, then everybody wins. Everybody wins. Dana says something that LeBron James doesn't know. You have to be a team player.
And then let me just throw this out. I like what Michael says. He says over on YouTube, he says, go to the hole, damn it. Go to the hole. But what I also want to say is this, y'all. So as my wife mentioned earlier, your sexual performance it should not be the only way you define yourself as a man. It shouldn't be, or as a woman. But recognize that there may come a point in time in your life where you can't perform sexually.
Never say no.
You can't get it up. You can't penetrate the way you want to. You can't go to the hole the way you want to go to the hole.
Right. Women reach menopause, you get dry down there. So just have issues.
So the question for you all is, what are you doing in preparation?
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that it's a possibility, and I'm hoping that it doesn't come, but knowing that it's a possibility, what's the foundation that you're laying to build the intimacy, to build up that emotional and intimate bank account so that if that ever does come, that you all can press through and you all can then experience, even heightened levels of intimacy together without that. So how do you set yourself up now in the event that occurs?
That is the question.
You know, I mean, and it's just real talk. You know, I mean, it's requiring some forethought.
Absolutely. If you're just joining us tonight, we're talking about some of the signs that your relationship may be on the rocks. It may be on the rope. It is in a questionable place. And so some of what you heard already this evening may have been like, okay. Or maybe you realize, you know what, we're doing pretty good. But the point of tonight is for you to think critically about some of the things that we often take for granted and some of the behaviors that we persistently and consistently really do that undermine our relationship. And you got to pay attention to that happening, because when that happens over time, it puts your relationship in a very, very, very funky and vulnerable place, a vulnerable place. So number 5, there's really 2 sides to this coin. But one of the ways that you can know your relationship is on the ropes, and I think somebody said this a little earlier, it might have been Tiffany, she spoke to it, is if you have too much time apart. And how do you know if there's too much time apart? If your partner is dissatisfied. That's simply it. If your partner is dissatisfied and they're telling you, we're not spending enough time together, okay, they're making comments. Oh, so you going out again, or you're going to hang with so-and-so, or you, whatever, right? Fill in the blank. When that is happening repeatedly, then what's happening with the partner who's feeling left out and left alone? Well, they're alone, they're by themselves.
And I got a number 6.
They're there to ruminate and to, kind of be with themselves. And so that's a sign, because it's not that. So let me do this before I say that piece. The flip side of that is your need for constant attention, validation, or reassurance. So that's the flip side of it. I need you with me all the time. You going me here? Where we gonna be together? What we gonna do? Why? Where you going? Who you gonna be with? What you doing? Why you can't come over here? Right? That's the flip side of it. That's also a sign that your relationship is on the ropes, because nobody wants to feel like they got a second mama or a second daddy. When people are grown, it is difficult for people to try to attend to your emotional needs and still try to maintain balance in terms of our own autonomy, your own independence. So there are 2 sides to that coin. But what has to happen is when you're experiencing something like that, when somebody's saying they're dissatisfied, how do you know whether or not, like what they're saying is reasonable or is not reasonable? How do you know if someone is, asking for too much or, or whatever, right? The way that you know that is that you engage in conversation and you communicate about it, and that you do not just disregard and ignore it. It's not complicated, y'all. Most of the things that we need to pay attention to in our relationships are not complicated. They start and end with good, effective communication. It's just that we don't enter into that place and we make it complicated. And so when your partner is saying, well, we haven't done this and we haven't done that, you're like, yes, we have, or it's not that serious. Or, all right, I'm gonna be back. Like that kind of stuff, just letting it go and letting it roll, right? That's another pattern. You're participating in the pattern by not really taking it seriously. And so you have to say, wait a minute. So this is what you do. So look, I heard you say that for some time now. Do you really feel like we don't spend enough time together? Because guess what? We're all individuals. And so my desire in terms of how much time I want to spend with my boo may be different than the amount of time he wants to spend with me. And it is not a reflection of how he feels about me, or how, or how I feel about him. We are 2 different people. We have 2 different emotional makeups. And so we have to deal with that, and we have to talk about that. And so if I say it makes me feel this type of way when, every weekend or every other weekend you're doing this and we don't get that time, then my partner needs to be able to figure out how to attend to that. Because when we feel attended to, It's not about show up and be with me. Come over here, do this with me, come to church with me, go to this place with me, come with me to the cookout, go with me over Auntie's house, right? You don't need to just do what I asked you to do. I don't need to just do what you asked me to do. What we need to do is we need to engage one another and figure out, well, what's going on with that? How are you feeling? You know what I'm saying? What's behind the feeling? Like what's the problem? Why do you think I need to go with you over your aunt's house? Like, I know your family's gonna be over there, but like, does that mean I gotta be there? right? Like you got to have these types of conversations. And so until you go into those conversations in more detail, your relationship will be on the ropes, because what will be happening and what will continue to happen is that needs will not get met, and resentment will start to build because you're just staying on the surface. So make sure that you pay attention to time spent apart, and your different perceptions around that. You know, we've been lucky in that we have, and we really have been very, very lucky and very blessed, because for the most part, I think as we've gotten older and time has gone on, there are spaces and places where my husband wants to kind of do his own thing and I want to do my own thing. Not that we've never had that, but a lot of what we are interested in, a lot of the things we want to do, a lot of the conversations that we have, how we hang, we are fine with doing it together and being together. And so we've been on the same vibration, but that's not always the case. And so you just have to get to and through the right kind of communication so that you can get to the other side of that.
So we're blessed. What's up, Brian, bro? Again, if you haven't shared, please go ahead and share. As my wife was talking, I thought about another one that I had wanted to lift up too.
This is your bonus for tonight. This is the bonus. This is the last one.
It might be another bonus.
No, it was a bonus.
This is a bonus right here.
Okay. All right. You said, look at it.
And so let me ask this question before I get into this this number 6 right here. Has anybody out there ever been cheated on? If you've been cheated on, put a like or put a frown, or maybe put a frown, not a like or a heart. Put a frown, put a sad face, or put something.
Put a sad face.
Put something. If you ever been cheated on, put some type of emoji to indicate that you've been cheated on. I want to make sure that I'm not the only one and my wife ain't the only one. You know, if you ever been cheated on before, put some type of emoji.
Let us know. Let us know
for a second, because I want to know.
And while you're doing that, Bruce says, what if your partner is an introvert? So I think that question, I'm assuming you're asking that at the end, kind of like as a follow-up to what we just talked about. That is like that question captures the essence of what we want you all to understand tonight. And that is that everybody has a different personality, that we can't expect people to just show up the way we are. I can't tell you how many times there are ways that I want to do things, ways that I want to flow, from very simple things to much more complex and complicated things. And my husband is just not in alignment with me. He is an introvert. I'm an extrovert, and there are different ways that we approach things. And sometimes I've made assumptions and been like, just come on out here. We're going to dance. We're doing an event. We're going to dance out, right? And we're going to come out. We're going to play I'm serious. We're going to play this music.
Y'all should see our conversations before our Black Marriage Day. Like,
not just that, when we've gone and done other trainings and stuff. I like to introduce. I like to come out and get the energy going.
We be straight arguing in the back.
And I'm like, I told him to turn on the music so that we can come out. And then he'd be like, what?
I'm always deferring.
You're not always deferring.
I'm always dancing out, but I don't want to do all of that.
He be doing a fake dance like,
I'm gonna give you the simple 2
You know what I'm saying? And I'd be like, yeah, right. But the point is, right, is that, I could get in my feelings and be like, you're not serious about this, and you don't, feel it the way, right? Look, the same way I do, whatever. Well, so when you have different personalities and different skill sets and different ways of seeing things and experiencing things, we have to make room for one another. The only way you will learn how to make room for your partner, because we all will say that, it sounds good, but it's harder to do. The only way is to engage in good, effective communication. Just to ask, where you at? Why you feel like that? I'm trying to figure out
how you just hijacked my number 6.
Oh, that was your number 6?
I ain't even finished I just asked a question and then you jumped in there.
I just gave an example. We'll go on ahead.
So I saw that we got some responses, and you see what Travis said? I said, we got you, Travis.
All right, Travis.
So again, so a number of people have indicated they've been cheated on. How many of y'all out there have done the cheating? Raise your hand.
Why you gonna really ask me?
I'm gonna say. So I'm gonna raise my hand and say I. I'm gonna raise my hand and say I.
I'm gonna raise my hand and say I.
Raise your hand if you done the cheating. I want to see if somebody gonna be bold out there.
I like that question.
We're willing. Okay, Brian, bro, he put his hand up. Thank you, Brian.
Okay.
All right. So I see 529. She said she put her hand up too. Okay. So one way that you know that your relationship is on the rocks is what?
That's it.
You did say something.
No, go ahead.
Mofo.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So one way that you know that your relationship is on the rocks is when there's no ownership and there's no accountability when it comes to infidelity.
Mm.
And so people find themselves in a position where they're like in this perpetual state of denial and refusing to acknowledge, to take ownership and accountability over the fact that they've cheated in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you are in a relationship where your partner has denied, and you know, but you've also been gaslit to the degree where you start to believe they're ish, then that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem, because what ends up happening is that you start to really have a challenge with your sense of self, and you can't reckon with that, and you realize and you know that, you know, what I think is supposed to be or what I think is the reality, you're trying to tell me that it's really not, and I know that the truth is supposed to be other than what it is that you're telling me. And so again, if your partner is unwilling to take ownership, to be accountable, to change their ways, then that's a clear indicator that your relationship is on the ropes. Especially as you come to the realization that I need to do something different, I need to show up different, and I should be expecting different, and I should be raising my standards, then that's going to challenge y'all in a whole different way.
Yes. Guys, tonight we have talked about so many little variables that you can look at when you examine your relationship and you pay attention to where you are. If you're not intentional about taking the time to look at where your relationship is, to say, you know, wait a minute, is it on the ropes? Is my relationship a little vulnerable? You know, for those of you who show up consistently, pretty faithfully, I just want to give you kudos. I want to give you a shout out, because the fact that you are intentional and the fact that you pay attention, that already gives you one level of security and one level of being ahead of the game than most people. Because most of us take things for granted. Most of us take our relationships for granted, our partners for granted. We don't pay attention to the things that we need to pay attention to so that we can continue to grow. We get comfortable. We get complacent. And so tonight, we hope that we have helped you to be able to pay attention to maybe not just some of the things that you might be experiencing, but some of the things you need to box out for, and you need to make sure that you prevent. I saw you look at me when I said box out. You need to prevent. And the way that you do that is you make sure that you stop playing, you start pushing, that you are intentional, that you communicate, that you take time to celebrate as you elevate your relationship. We hope this has been of help to you. This has been another Relationship Thursday. We love y'all. Let me just say this. I think we have like one spot left.
I think so.
I think one spot left
too, but I think it might be
for our retreat that's happening in October, sponsored by Union Temple Baptist Church. We're going to Pennsylvania to a glorious, fabulous mansion. Go to Courageous Couples Retreat. Is that it?
Yeah.
.com. CourageousCouplesRetreat.com. If you have any questions about the process, you can always inbox us here on Facebook. But we have one spot left. And there will be 14 fabulous couples, and we will have a grand old fun old time. We're gonna get a little bit deep. It's called the Courage to Connect. So we're gonna get deep on y'all connected. Y'all gonna be connected, right? That's what we want y'all to do, and we're gonna have a good time and have some fun at the same time. So check out Courageous Couples Retreat for more information. And then just a heads up that blackloveandmarriage.com has been offline for a little while we have been doing some updates to it, and that will be back up and out on next week, Monday of next week. blackloveandmarriage.com, where there are lots of resources, lots of articles, videos, and different things for you to be able to pull from to continue to support your relationship. So we love y'all. We see you next week, same time, same place. Until next time.
All right, y'all.
Bye.
Peace.